We like the garden. Fun. We're good. Okay. Next.
Hi. Hi. Who are you and where are we?
I'm Arden Jones. We're at Great Day Gardens in Farm.
And
We're in Bedford County.
that's right. Forest, right?
Forest, yes.
Forest, Virginia.
Virginia.
I wanted to talk to you today about bugs and butterflies in particular. The only thing that comes to mind for me when it comes to gardening, and like I'll do it all the time, but is that I'm a beautiful butterfly. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
bugs life.
Why do you like butterflies?
Butterflies are amazing. They're so tiny and delicate, but they're super resilient, and they can migrate and like remember over generations where they were, and they are also super honed into like specific plants, and so they're great indicators of ecosystem health.
And you studied, what was it? You studied or like just got really infatuated?
Yeah, I did some independent study on them in college in different places, and would do butterfly surveys in places where I was working.
What was it? What was the survey?
So it was like a population survey. I did it on St. Catherine's Island on the Georgia coast.
Okay.
For one project, and then I did it when I studied abroad in Zanzibar on the island of Pemba.
What?
In a national forest there. Yeah, we did a butterfly survey of Pemba's national forest. And then I did a moth survey at the Valles Caldera National Preserve in New Mexico too.
What was the main focus of it too? I mean, like partner plant or like plants that go with
The moth survey was after a big wildfire, so it was a burn. Like we were comparing the moth populations in the areas that had been burned and the ones that hadn't been burned. So like the ones that had been burned had no plants in them, so they had very few moths in them. It's very obvious. But in Georgia, that was more just like a baseline survey of what species there were and where we saw them, like what habitat types we saw them in. So.
And then did you bring all of that to like when you started this?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I haven't done like scientific studies, or I haven't even really made a butterfly list, but I think what I learned through that was how to observe things closely and pay attention to specifics and how to kind of like extrapolate that over an environment. And so I think that's super important when you're farming because things change so quickly, and just being able to manage a decent sized farm and go around and make little mental notes of where your plants are, you know, in their growth process and everything.
But like but out of the bugs too, I mean, do you plant certain flowers though, or other pollinator plants, right, to attract certain butterflies, or is it kind of...
Well, do you want to know the dirty secret of flower farming?
Sure.
Flowers...
Well, you don't.
Are bred in commercial purposes to not have a strong scent or not even to produce pollen, because once they're pollinated, they start wanting to go to seed and they don't bear to be good flower anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Ew.
most of the good pollinator plants that I have around the farm are cover crop that blooms, wild plants that I let go when I'm mowing, and I mow.
How long has that been a thing? They make them not smell as much?
Yeah, it's
like,
varieties.
I know
like sunflowers, because you don't want them to go to seed, or you don't want them to drop pollen on people's tablecloths, things like that. And a lot of like roses, commercial roses, they don't smell like roses. They don't smell good.
Really?
Yeah, because you don't want to attract the bugs to it.
I didn't know that at all. But I mean, it makes sense. It's the same like with trees, right? In cities, right? They only breed the males because you don't want fruit. They like attract other bugs, like you know what I mean? So then you have like a pollen.
Yeah, it's like this sterile ecosystem.
Ew.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. Okay. Well,
but to answer your question, yeah, cover crops are awesome. I just had a huge crimson clover cover crop that the honeybees were like all about, and now buckwheat's about to come in. Got peas flowering, and you know, a lot of my flowers that I do for cut flowers I do like the bachelor's button and everything, but
yeah,
the things that make really good cut flowers, like some of the hybrid sunflowers, you're not going to see eggs on because they're not actually produced.
So the butterflies don't damage anything though on the farm for eating, right? They're just spreading pollen. So they are like, what I'm trying to get at is which bugs? What are your relationships with different types of bugs?
Oh yeah, it's complicated. It's a whole thing. So there's, we have cabbage whites, which are, people think they're butterflies. They're actually moths. No, sorry, just said that completely wrong. People think they're moths.
Okay.
So cabbage white are butterflies.
So the little white ones, right? Yeah.
They look like moths because they're small, but they're actually butterflies. And they're not good butterflies, in my opinion, because they will completely ravage all the cole crops, brassicas, or the other name for it, so cabbage and kale and things like that. So I do manage against cabbage white butterflies, which means that I will spray BT,
Yeah. What is that?
which is a microbe that kills them, basically, when they eat the plant. And it's natural occurring in plants and in nature, but it kills pretty much every Lepidoptera, so every butterfly. But I only spray it on the things that the cabbage whites will eat.
I heard
'Cause,
leprechaun. What'd you say?
Lepidoptera?
Can you explain what a lepidoptera is?
It's the, what is it, the kingdom, it's the group
Phylum, whatever, kingdom phylum. Whatever. Okay. But it's a group that does
that all butterflies and moths are.
Oh, okay.
are
Okay.
So, anyway.
Oh, great.
BT would kill all Lepidoptera, but I only spray it on things that the cabbage whites are eating. So the swallowtail butterflies will come and eat parsley and stuff, and I don't really care because they don't produce a million caterpillars, and if there's a few on the parsley, it's fine. They can eat it. So I just am careful not to spray dill and parsley and stuff in BT. And then if I don't see cabbage whites, I'm not going to spray it just
for the heck of it.
Yeah, I try to.
Do you call that what is that, IPM kind of thing, or iterative, whatever, pest management? Do you have like a
I
style?
guess it would be considered IPM because it is like a microbe, but I think of IPM more on my farm as being like attracting in the predator insects.
I got you.
That will eat the insects that are eating the vegetables.
Yeah.
So things like wasps.
Well, that's what I'm curious about too. Like, I wanted to start this off with butterflies because I think that's kind of the most, interesting and well liked. People love seeing butterflies, but it brings up kind of the relationship between plants and bugs, right? They're these symbiotic relationships, and then we come in wanting to like keep all the food. So do you have like your two top favorite bugs and like least favorite?
Yeah, well, favorite is definitely ladybugs are awesome. And I would say monarch butterflies, probably. Just knowing their story and their journey and everything. They're like cool. Praying mantises are cool too. Least favorite bugs. Cutworms are pretty nasty because you don't really see them. You just see the damage that they leave behind.
What is their story?
They usually in the early spring they'll be emerging out of the soil and they eat roots, and so they'll come through and just like eat your baby seedlings that are in the ground. And it's very
devastating.
It's very devastating, and you don't necessarily know it happens until days later if you weren't paying close attention, and it happens like overnight too. And they come army worms.
Yeah,
kind of the same thing. It's like called army because they come in an army, and so they're pretty nasty.
What's your second least favorite?
I would say the second one would be I would say there's funny things about each one. Potato beetles are pretty gnarly. Bean beetles, Mexican bean beetles, because they're nasty because they have the larval stage. It's like this little yellow sac that gets all over the beans.
Oh.
And it's just gross.
I just find it funny because you hear of stink bugs, right? You hear of like the things that you come across as, I'm going to say a civilian, but in ag, it is so funny. The names for them sound like, I feel like you could start a superhero universe and like they would all be like the villain names, kind of,
Harlequin bug, that's a good.
Is that one Harlequin bug?
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones that you deal with?
Three-striped cucumber beetle. That might not be right.
Yeah, I know flea beetles.
Nematodes.
So from when you started to, and that's why I find it so interesting, you had this relationship with insects, we'll just call it, right? With butterflies. Yeah. That was this kind of like a fascination. How has your relationship with insects changed starting and operating a farm, for as many years as you have? Is it still a battle? Is it like, has it changed?
No, it's not a battle. I'm just more perceptive about, I'm more business-like, I would say, about bugs.
Yeah. What is the business of bugs?
Just, I'm like looking at insects, eating something, and you either say, oh, that's a good insect or that's a bad insect. And if they're like chowing down on something and it's good insect, you're like, good for them, they've got food, like,
Right.
yay, healthy ecosystem. But if it's a quote bad insect, then you're like, how many dollars of cabbage and like how many months of work getting it to its peak just went down the drain.
Well, and in recent, I mean, you told me about your kind of the group chat, right? And how it helping each other, you connected with other farmers, and how that kind of helps. And like when pests or something comes up, is there something that consistently over the past couple of years just gets a lot of the attention? Like, how do I deal with one of these over others?
Yeah, well, lately it's been like groundhogs and rabbits, voles, and it's like, no matter how long you've been farming, it's like first-time farmers and veteran farmers, it's like, how do you dispose of a groundhog body? Or like, how do you...
Are you allowed to?
Well, yeah, you're not supposed to relocate them, and then it's like not everybody wants to shoot an animal. A lot of farmers drown groundhogs, which is like equally problematic.
Yeah.
Humane reasons.
Yeah.
So,
But because you're not allowed to shoot them, or they don't want to.
well, yeah, sometimes you're not allowed to, or you just don't feel like comfortable shooting it.
Yeah. What's your restriction food out? Like, do you eat meat? No.
Yeah,
You do. Okay. The curiosity they have is, when I'll talk to people about like avocado farm, right?
Mhm.
Like depending on the size of it, but let's just say a standard one for like in California, it's like 100,000 groundhogs, I think, a season or a month, whatever. It's massive, the amount that it have to be, we'll call it taken care of or whatever. And then those avocados that are going, though, usually the people that are eating tons and tons of those kind of like don't want animal cruelty, don't want
right. Dispatch is what you call it.
dispatch. Oh, good God. I will talk to somebody too about like, are you guys processing chicken, like harvesting?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, cool, whatever you want to call it. But it's interesting in that relationship, like, and same thing, bugs. When you want to be, like, I don't know how there would be like a Taoist farmer, right? But I feel like you're the closest.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when I first started farming, I came at it from a very naturalistic, a lot of permaculture influences and very idealistic, and as a lot of new young farmers do. And I would let the weeds just like go to seed because I thought they were pretty, or I thought they had a use or a purpose or a good smell or a pretty flower. And I still do that, honestly. Like, part of me has trouble, but now that I have more knowledge about on my specific farm how weeds exist and how to manage and like keep things from going to seed when they shouldn't, I'm a lot more cruel in the way that I will mow things, or because I know the way things operate here, and I like have this knowledge of my specific farm and my specific land, and I'm able to make those decisions a little bit more enforced.
Adapt them. I just find that it's so, whether or not, like you said, young farmers will come into it kind of, and it's like, I don't want to kill anything. And especially if they have like egg-laying birds, is always my favorite when the first coyote shows up and then it keeps coming, they're like, I'm gonna kill this thing. I'm like, whoa. But like here on the farm though, do you feel like that balance, that like, I just always get fascinated by the philosophy of farmers and how farming over the years leads to this pragmatism.
Yeah.
Right? Finding this middle ground of like, I don't want to spray everything and kill everything. You kill herbicides and pesticides, right? That's on one far end. And on the other end, you have don't touch anything. What's been your middle ground?
I think for me, just adopting a mindset that everything is temporary is really like the best you can do, because everything's seasonal. I don't have one crop that I'm like putting everything into and expecting this return or else I'm ruined. It's like, if something's getting eaten, I'll do my best to prevent that within my capability and my preserving my sanity and everything. But it's also like not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But it's a funny one species that has been a funny turnaround for me has been goldfinches. Used to be my favorite birds. Like,
is that what that birdhouse is?
That's bluebirds.
Oh, bluebirds.
Goldfinches, they just showed up recently. I think they come through for like a brief period of time here. But usually it's like summer. They're like here for the summer. But so they're so pretty and cute in the way they fly as they like bounce, and they have pretty little song. So I love watching them. They come in big flocks, and so they kind of make a big show. And then I found out that they love to eat Swiss chard and just like
go to town on the Swiss chard.
And other greens and stuff, and which is so funny because you never think of birds wanting to eat greens. But so now I kind of, I like kind of have that battle in my head when I see.
I just looked this up the other day for barn swallows because I put up all that the reflective tape stuff all over the garden. And then I like 5 or 6 birds just flying right, like standing right next to it, like, disco balls. You need disco. Like, I don't know what they were doing, but then also in one of the posts, there's 2 hatchlings now. I was like, good God. And so I was trying to look up, do they eat crops or not?
Yeah.
And it turns out, but they are helpful. They'll eat bugs, but they don't go after greens or anything like that. But I think you have to know what birds are which kind of thing, and which ones are going to be a problem or not. But it's kind of funny trying to figure that balance out of like, I want an ecosystem, but it's also kind of like a private party.
Yeah.
Where I want some not to be there. And then same thing in the food at the end. I've always explained it when like you get a head of lettuce, right? And if it had like a little bug in it, it's a Cracker Jack prize. Congratulations. You know what I mean? It's a good sign. That's how I would tell that story. Like, it's a really good sign. It means nothing was sprayed and nothing could kill that bug, which is not going to destroy your food. How do you explain? I don't know who that is. How do you explain when people get a bug in there? You know what I mean? You've had that one over the years.
Yeah. It happens a lot. Like I think we do a pretty good job of going through and getting out the weeds and the bugs and stuff. And one day I was talking to a customer and I knew that the lettuce that we had harvested had a ton of grass in it. And so I apologized ahead in advance. I was like, we tried to get it all out, but I think there might be a little bit of grass in there. And he just looked at me. He'd been a customer of mine for years. He's like, oh, there always is.
Yeah.
And so I think I don't explain it. And I kind of have a self-selecting clientele that just knows that that's because we harvested it by hand. And then like a normal real life situation where there's weeds and grass and stuff. And same thing with bugs. Like I think people, if I have customers who are going to complain about having a slug in their lettuce, I don't try to cater to that too much because I don't want to be tied down to this mentality of like having to cater to people who don't really understand
living organisms and how things. Yeah. But that's what I mean. There is this type sometimes too that expects this 100%, and it should be all cleaned. It should be packaged properly. It should be. There's no moldy bit. There's what I mean.
A lot of hypochondriacs who shop at the farmers market, which is. I get it because like they want to have more control over their food. And so that is kind of tricky because you want to be sensitive to that condition that people have.
But that's tough.
But I think just, maybe more practice for them of like understanding like what it might be like. And, on our end, having quality control standards that are acceptable. And I do recognize that my standards for eating like things with dirt on them are much lower than most people. So I have to like remind myself of that constantly.
I did that last night too. I made a pasta that I had saved from the garden and I just kind of wiped the dirt off one of the pieces. And I was like, this is good. And they're like, is that brown butter? I'm like, yeah, that's the brown butter sauce. That's what that is. If one of these cartoon movie companies anthropomorphized one of the bugs on the farm to make a different farm, like a farm version of a bug's life, what bug do you think should be the main character?
Oh, I mean, I'm just thinking Bug's Life because I recently watched that with my son. But I don't know. I think the Harlequin bug is just like needs to be more well known.
Why?
Because they're really funny. They're like bright orange or reddish orange with black spots, and as soon as you touch them they just fall down. It's like their defense mechanism. They like fall off the plant so you can't catch them.
They don't look like fireflies, do they? Kind of no. What do they look like?
It's like a shield bug. It's like related to the stink bug.
It is
that shield shape
around it. Yeah.
But it's brightly colored.
They're
very destructive on kale and stuff.
Well, I always like that line that I used to hear, like a weed is just a name for a thing that we haven't figured out its true purpose yet. Right. Oh, you hear that one? It's cute. But I had farmers that I'd farm with, and it was funny because one of them in particular once, I remember showing, and this is in Louisiana, like down in the bayou, and it was a banana permaculture farm, and I was just sitting there being like, let's go to war. Like these weeds, they're gone, all this. And I was like it was this battle talk kind of.
Yeah.
And he was like, whoa. It's not a war. We work with the weeds. We figure out what they need. In permaculture, right? Banana farm in the bayou. It was a little strange, but it was lovely.
Yeah, I mean, if you narrow everything down to being like a war or against, then you miss seeing like the opportunities.
Right, the value that it brings. Do you find that there is a weed that you found?
Johnson grass.
Is that a weed?
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, is it that you found a better purpose for?
Oh, not.
What were you gonna say about Johnson grass?
It's my nemesis in my blueberries. I don't know what to do about it.
Interesting.
It's like one thing that I haven't found a solution for. But there's this one weird weed I have that is not. I don't know.
If it lands on one of us, I'm gonna lose. I know. Okay. So Johnson grass is your bane right now.
Yeah,
when dealing with, what are you planting there?
Really, I haven't. It's not good anywhere, but it's in my blueberries, and it's a perennial weed in a perennial crop, and it's just like, how do you deal?
Always comes back on. Okay.
Because you can't dig it up, because it's just the roots.
I'll have to ask about that, but I do like when I talk to cattle farmers, and they go like, like love Johnson.
Yeah, I know. If I had fence in each blueberry plant, have the cows.
a mini cow, to a Highland cattle to like each one of them. Okay, so Johnson grass. But what I was trying to get at was, is there a weed that you well, it sounds like you had the other journey. You liked them all kind of, and then slowly went like, no.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of, like, my employees do that too, where they like get worried about killing plants and they don't want to, and I have to like tell them it's okay, like counsel them, like, please kill these plants, kind of thing.
Yeah. What are the ones that are the most prolific? Like, if you don't get them early, it ruins your,
The longer I'm farming, the more weeds I have. It's called your seed bank.
Yeah.
Seed bank is filling up just because you're managing your farm in a certain way, and that those annual weeds adapt to that.
Yeah.
So every season, every week has a different problem weed. So I think the way to manage that now is just trying to give rest periods in my growing spaces so that I can have like a really well-established cover crop. And, you grow something like ryegrass or something, it has allelopathic properties, which will inhibit seed germination for other weeds and stuff. So even just having like a thick stand of cover crop, throughout a whole year, it's going to like break the ability for the weed seeds to germinate in that year, and then maybe the next year they're not going to be viable anymore.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the direction I'm going in, trying to use more of my land area and have more. I mean, cover crop is amazing for soil building and so many different purposes, but if nothing else, just trying to get things less weed.
Lock those down. And that's the only other thing I hear people that do. I mean, it's covering tarp or whatever else. And then this battle between like leaving it out in the open versus like covering some of it up. So you leave most of it open. There's some cover.
The tarps or cover. I tarp a lot in the late season. This is kind of like full garden mode right now, so the tarps are not out. But I do use tarps a lot.
Yeah, because you can't, it proliferates way too quick.
Yeah.
Okay. And
landscape app.
Other than, last thing I was going to ask you though too was, in terms of kind of the story of the farm though, how do you explain the role of bugs to others?
I think, it's a very ecosystematic kind of farm. So just I think the bugs are like teachers for us. They're indicators for us. They're only good in the fact that like they're just here to like eat and live their lives.
Yeah.
So I think, I think just paying attention and like learning a lot from them, and also like I think a lot of organic farmers or people getting into sustainable farming don't know about the organic options of killing insects, and like that is used a lot on my farm and on other farms is like very smart strategic spray regimen. It's like we are not a no spray farm. It's organic, natural products to kill insects.
It's actually a great thing to talk about just a little bit, because I think there's a huge misconception about, I've even seen no spray, no till. And that's fine. I think it gives this blanket like comfort, but I honestly think that's only for a certain scale of farm, when you have the time to like hand pick everything time or whatever else. But anybody that's at scale where I think you're farming full time,
it's not
realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you explain just a little bit about that too, that misconception of sprays that are really bad versus things that like, you know, and I know I don't mixed feelings about organic certification, right? But just in terms, because that list changes like every year of what you're allowed, what you're not.
Yeah.
But what's a good spray or like a reasonable one, let's say, and what it does, and like one that people think of in their head?
Yeah. So, I mean, like the thing we spray more than anything is fish fertilizer. It's like fish and kelp, and it's a byproduct of the fishing industry, and it smells bad, but it has a lot of potassium and nitrogen in it. And so we're spraying that on the plants, but it's literally just organic
Fish food.
fish. Yeah, fish. So like just because you're spraying something, I mean, most people know that. Like a lot of home gardeners will spray, you know, vinegar and dish soap on their wheat as like a herbicide and stuff like that. So like that's pretty obvious. It's like, yes, we spray, but I always use the term like synthetic chemicals. We do not use any synthetic chemicals, so we don't use anything that's made in a factory ever. And but either way, I think it's really good to talk about on organic farms, because you still need to have like a basic understanding of what is safe and what's not safe, and when you apply it. And like, you know, if you just don't talk about it, then people starting to farm will have no idea that they even... I spoke to somebody who's been farming for as long as I have, but he had just never been... Well, he never had worked on another farm before, which is part of it. But also he just had never learned about fertilizer. And so it's like he hadn't been fertilizing his crops. And it's like, you have to do that. I mean, you're extracting so much weight out of your fields every year. It's like you have to put something back. And it's like being able to make a good choice about what you're putting back. You have to, you know, talk about like what the options are. So
yeah, replenishing it. And Three Sisters will take care of all of it.
Yeah. And a lot of people just rely on compost, which, you know, compost is awesome. Compost is great, but it's not always balanced, and it's not all, you know, sometimes you can overdo it. And so there's other...
And you have to build it over time, and you have to kind of keep that flow going.
Yeah. Yeah. So testing your soil, and that's a big thing that Ellen Polishuk does. And, you know, she's like a soil consultant. And although I think now she's saying she doesn't want to do that anymore, but testing your soil so that you're making smart choices about what you're putting on your farm this year is like the thing that everybody should be doing.
I even went and got the kits that the extension office like hands out and everything, and I still haven't done it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the weirdest thing, but like you care about all this other stuff. I bought these Socos, I bought nets, I bought all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I just haven't sent in the soil. You're
not alone. I think it's a huge thing for me too. Like, it's on my to-do list every year, and like half of the time I don't do it because it feels overwhelming for some reason.
Well, you want to go to 6 locations, get 4 inches down.
Mix it all together.
Yeah, mix it all together, send that in, and then I'm kind of like, I think it's weird. I think it's just reminiscent of like getting graded. And I don't want to get a B or a C, and I'm kind of like, no, I bought a bag of compost and topsoil. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're afraid you're gonna have to like change something, but in the end, you know, you're making good decisions, and you're probably saving money, not putting things down you don't need to put down, or whatever, or like definitely saving money by having your crops grow better.
And are you USDA organic, or what's your and why are you not?
Well, I have always just sold directly to customers, and I'm not a good paperwork person, and
that's so what?
I mean, I'm managing my own business, and I'm the administrator and the farmer and everything, so I just don't have the bandwidth to spend a lot of time keeping records and stuff. And one year, like, I was thinking ahead, because I know that it's good to have like 3 years of records before you get certified organic. And so one year I like started off with my calendar, and like every day I would write down everything I did, everything I applied, everything I seeded, everything I whatever. And then as soon as my CSA started, it's like I went from like full pages every day to like nothing.
Because you're too busy to do that. I mean, so it's another full-time job.
Yeah. And I probably was overdoing it in the first place. Like, you know, it's like it's like start keeping your journal for the first time. Yeah. It's like you write like 4 pages every day, and then you're like, oh, I don't have time for this anymore.
Yeah, no.
So yeah.
But it's been an interesting thing, because most of the farms that I know that do the best, it's a weird thing. There's like not so great. And then people get into organic certification, but usually it's a marketing strategy thing, right?
Yeah.
Or it's good for the grocery store.
Yeah.
But if you're direct to consumer, but the best farmers I know don't have organic certification.
That's awesome.
Because 1, it costs too much. 2, they're spending time like, you know, farming.
Yeah.
And then, so they're not getting that. But it's a fun thing for consumers who are kind of like, well, if there's, like it's some kind, I think some consumers think it's like an award that they go out to farms and they just go like, congratulations, you did the right thing, right? As opposed to it's something you have to apply for, keep record, continuously do paperwork. The paperwork alone costs, what is it, like $2,000 or something?
Yeah, I think it depends on which agency you're using, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a whole lot. But then this feeds into the same notion about the bugs, the butterflies, right? Where you are allowed to spray certain things, but the list changes every year for what you can do and can't do. So it becomes really interesting about how to manage a place, but then how to express that to a consumer. So your line for your farm is, we do no synthetic sprays. What's the bundle of like things you tell people about this farm?
Well, I will say it's women operated, because it is women owned and operated. And yeah, we care about soil health, which is the same thing that organic is supposed to be doing. But I think as organic has become very industrialized, it's questionable whether or not that's happening the way it should be. But yeah, soil health, no synthetic chemicals, and yeah, we're like community involved kind of thing.
Yeah. I dig it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.